On this week's show, Nate Bennis is here from the University of Nebraska to talk about BACnet SC. Is it the next step in OT networking? Should we all be getting ready to migrate? And are my BBMDs headed for the recycle bin? Find out. I'm Ryan LaFlamme, and this is How to Handshake, Episode 3. Welcome back, Episode 3. Hey, Ping.
Hello, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good. And yourself? You just got back from a few days off?
I did. Was in Hawaii for a little vacation with the family, and then a big cheerleading competition in Florida.
That's right. And that'll have to be something we get into on another episode, but that's a little bit of inside baseball for you, is that Ping grew up a cheerleader and has since now raised at least one other competitive cheerleader.
That's right.
So
Fun fact.
the cheer dynasty continues. So that's a lot of fun. So this week we're going to get into BACnet SC. That's the topic here. I know a lot of people have been asking about this. This was a conversation we had with Nate Bennis from the University of Nebraska. And I know that you and Nate, I believe, have collaborated together with the BACnet committee. So, yeah, I mean, it's great. I think he's the perfect person to sort of dig into the details with this. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Nate is core to the BACnet Standard Committee and a very active member, and also one of the leaders of this BACnet BACnet SC addendum. That's right.
Right. So before we jump into that, I just wanted to take 2 minutes and go over just a quick update for our OptigoVN users that your team here actually has been doing a lot of work and rolling out a lot of very high quality of life updates, as well as we've taken the lid off a couple of projects that are not live for the general audience yet, but are well underway. And so I thought I'd just name off a couple of these, and you can just let people know what they are and what's going on. A first one here, which I think is probably going to make a lot of people happy, is ARCNET support. So how are we supporting ARCNET now in OptigoVN?
Yeah. So ARCNET is still very dominant in automated logic systems, and automated logic in their latest controller that was released many years ago does have a packet capture built in to these controllers. And so it does allow automated logic ALC users to be able to capture BACnet traffic right at the controller level, which includes capturing BACnet over ARCNET traffic. Now, Optical Visual Networks does support decoding, processing these files created from automated logic ALC controllers on the ARCNET transport protocol. So very exciting.
And our users don't have to do anything. This will just ingest it as normal.
That's right. So if you have an ALC system, give it a try. Go to the built-in packet capture function, get the zip file, unzip it, take the ARCNET .pcap or .cap, I think it is, and then load it right into OptigoVN.
Device aliasing is a new one too. And I know that this was actually a request that started as a fix for one of our clients, and now we brought to everybody.
That's right. Yes. So probably one of the most popular function that a lot of our customers love in optical visual networks is our device table. So the device table learns from the network traffic and presents the devices as seen. You know, what's the device ID, what vendor ID it is, what's the address, when was the last time seen on the network. We added a device alias column. You can think of it as a device node, the device description. We call it device alias, allowing you as a human to add whatever note you want. You know, you can say, this is not the device it claims to be. You can say, this device was just added yesterday. But obviously, the most common way would be to add a unique name to the device. Just note that there's still a device name column, and that's the device name that's learned from the device traffic. But sometimes the name is not there because it was not added, or the name is not descriptive enough, and you can add the device alias, and that's user configurable.
And I've heard that some people even use them like team sticky notes. You can leave a note for other users who sign in. A particular one, you could say, "Well, this is the one on the right," or "This
That's
is."
right. Yeah, I think the
So,
best one I've seen is this one I don't like. They use more colorful language, but
Mhm.
yes,
That's yeah, very good. These are some really nice announcements that we've shared out on social, but I wanted to call them out here. The first one, which is really exciting, is our Optigo capture tool, the traffic capture tool. The software version is now part of the Neeve.ai or Neeve's marketplace. So people using the Neeve environment now have direct access to our packet capture.
Yeah, it's just one example of many technology partnership that's underway. But yeah, as you said, Ryan, Nieve, Neve.ai, if you're wondering, and us partnered together, and they added the optical capture tool as part of the gateway, as part of the marketplace. So if you are using a Nieve environment, a Nieve product, you can add very easily the optical capture tool, and especially if you also say run Niagara built into the Nieve gateway, then you have inline packet capture, and it will automatically upload to optical visual network, so no effort.
Yeah, one click, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Jace driver, Niagara driver compatibility now. And I know that this has been a goal for us for a while to get something like this out to better serve a lot of our customers running on the Niagara systems. So where are we at with that now?
So we are internally, we have a multi-phase approach for this launch, this product, the Niagara BACnet packet capture for optical visual networks, OptigoVN. Phase 1 is now available. It is in prototype mode, so not quite available for general availability. But if you're interested, reach out. We can point you to the prototype jar file that you can then install on your Niagara station, whether it's a hard JACE or a soft JACE supervisor, but allows capturing BACnet traffic right at that station, whether it's MSTP or BACnet IP, it doesn't really matter. You can capture that BACnet traffic right there, and it will automatically upload to optical visual networks. For those who are familiar already with what we've done in the past, Niagara did offer a wiretap function. So it's very similar to wiretap, but wiretap required a sync. It required that wiretap to be forwarded to another machine, another PC, on which you could then install Wireshark or optical capture tool and then capture that traffic. And that other PC is not always available, and it's a little bit cumbersome. So now you can capture right directly on the JACE on the Niagara station.
So instead of adding hardware, we're taking it away.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so if you're running BACnet traffic to JACEs, and you have lots of them, especially, you can just add this module to each of them. It will capture and upload automatically to optical visual networks. And again, it is in prototype phase right now. We are looking for more testers, more people who are interested to give it a try.
And for those whose ears have just perked up, how should they get a hold of you if they want to try it?
The best way to give it a try, it would be to send an email to sales@optigo.net.
Okay.
We ask to get access to the Niagara packet capture driver prototype. They'll put you in touch with myself or someone else from the team, and we'll get you started.
There you go, people. Off to the races. And all of these people help us create a better driver for everybody, right?
And all that will help us create an environment that allow you to monitor your OT network on all systems.
Perfect. And with that, let's get on to the interview with Nate. I'm really excited. I thought this was a great talk, and I learned a lot about BACnet SC that I didn't know before, and it's a lot further along than I thought. Yeah. So here we go. All right. Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We're here, and we're talking BACnet SC. With us today is Nate Benes. Is it Benes? Am I saying it correctly?
Benish.
Benish. Perfect. So please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name's Nate Benish. I work at the University of Nebraska in our operations department. So I'm a facilities guy by trade. And I also do a lot of work with ASHRAE's SSPC 135, the BACnet committee. I'm really excited to be here having this conversation with you and with Ping. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Hey, Nate, I'm going to make you do this. You are a fairly unique organization. For those who don't know, could you tell the world how unique it is?
So Nebraska has a really interesting approach to building automation. We don't buy building automation equipment off the shelf. All of our thermostats, all of our like big system controllers and stuff, we design and develop in-house.
Wow.
We've been in this business since 1975. So we just celebrated 50 years last year of doing it this way. And
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, there are not very many of us out there.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. All right. Ping, you have the first question.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, we're going to talk BACnet SC. SC stands for Secure Connect. Am I correct, Nate?
That's right.
And I think from a history in the BACnet standard, it is really like the third incarnation of it, or at least the second one, right? From the problem we try to solve.
Oh, no. So that's really interesting. BACnet has had different sorts of security features that have been added to the protocol and taken back out of the protocol over the years. What we call Clause 24, because that's the part of the standard where these are defined. And historically, what Clause 24 tried to do was for all different kinds of BACnet devices across all different kinds of data links, whether that's BACnet IP or MSTP, the serial bus in the field, or Zigbee or any of the other data links that BACnet has, we wanted one tool that allowed you to encrypt messages so that they were private as they moved across all these different data links and as they crossed all your routers. And what we found out working with users, and I say the royal we because this was largely before my time in the committee, was that there was a lot of like custom cryptography involved in that work, and it was pretty tricky to implement. And so the story of BACnet SC is kind of inspired by that experience, but it really set out to accomplish a different goal.
Good. Well, Nate, let's for those who do not know BACnet SC as well as you do, which is most of us, will you give us a quick overview of what the problem it tries to address, what it does, and what are the major components and terms we need to know before we dive into the weeds?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So BACnet SC is one of many data links in BACnet. One of the things that's really cool about BACnet, and one of the reasons that it's stuck around for so long, they just celebrated their 30-year anniversary last year, is we can take the same sorts of BACnet messages, like a who is or read property that we know, and we can pass it over all sorts of different kinds of transports. So BACnet IP is the one that most are familiar with. We also have MSTP, which is the serial bus that we've all seen, the twisted pair in the cabinet. Then there's some other ones that are less common, maybe Zigbee, ARCNET, regular Ethernet, IPv6. So we have all these different transports, and they each have their own application. They each have like places where they really shine. So SC is just another horse in that stable. It doesn't fundamentally re-architect anything in BACnet. It's just another tool in the toolbox. And what's cool about BACnet SC is it's fully encrypted at least from point to point. And it can run over top of existing IT or OT networks because BACnet SC operates as more of a hub and spoke model, which is in contrast with what we've seen historically in BACnet IP, which relies pretty heavily on UDP broadcasts, on IP broadcast. And that has historically caused some troubles for enterprise networks in particular, which kind of segues into the story of why BACnet SC. So BACnet SC came out of the BACnet's IT working group. And what their charter was when they got started was, hey, we're getting all this feedback that when we go and try to deploy BACnet IP on these big corporate networks, people don't have a very good experience. And we get a lot of pushback from IT departments, from building operators that this broadcast multicast behavior in particular is not very popular. And BACnet is what ASHRAE calls a continuous maintenance standard, which means when we see something in the field that's not working like we'd like, that doesn't serve customers well, that makes lives difficult for building operators, we can go fix it. And you know, we can patch it, we can update it, and we've been doing this for a long time. And so the mission of this IT working group was to say, how can we make BACnet work better on these corporate networks and you know, kind of play well on the sandbox.
So Nate, before again, the major components, so you mentioned hub and spoke. So what are some of the components of a BACnet SC that particularly for those who are somewhat familiar with BACnet IP that are unique, different, some of the terms that we need to know?
Yeah, so to make a BACnet SC network, at the bare minimum, you need what's called a BACnet hub. And a BACnet hub is sort of special. It's the only thing on a BACnet SC network that everybody needs to be able to see, to connect to. Now, a BACnet hub could be in a panel inside your building, just like any other pieces of building automation equipment. It could be in the cloud. What's nice is you could have a controller running BACnet SC in your building, and as long as it can see this hub, as long as it can dial out to this hub, it's going to be able to join this BACnet SC network and talk to everybody else. So unlike BACnet IP, where we have a bunch of firewall holes to string everything together, BACnet SC enables some like really cool architectures that maybe we can talk about a little bit later on.
Yeah. Then that's really great. And a lot of the conversation around BACnet SC that I've seen, it really leans on the idea or the phrase of zero trust. And for those who know it on the enterprise IT side, zero trust is a very fancy boardroom way of saying, never trust, always verify. Is that every device and an end user has to prove who it is every time it connects to the network or every time it's sending information over the network. So I guess, what does zero trust look like when the thing trying to talk isn't a computer, but something like a VAV controller? How far can that model realistically be pushed in building automation?
That's a great question. So when I talk to people about zero trust, one of the things I talk about is what it's not. So traditionally, when we thought of an enterprise network, a lot of that security is based around where you are on the network. So if I'm sitting in my office at the university, because I'm plugged into this jack on the wall and they know that jack's in Nate's office, there's things I can see. There's, maybe file shares I could get to, or, internal services, like an intranet or something that I can get to. But if I'm on the road like I am today, I don't have that access. I can't get to those resources, whatever it may be. Zero trust kind of flips that model from where you are on the network to who you are on the network. And the idea is that if I can prove that it's me, Nate Benish, I should be able to access the same resources wherever I am. It should sort of follow me around. And we can take this same model and bring it over to building automation. So we can say, hey, instead of anybody who joins this building automation VLAN, which, hey, I hope all of your building automation equipment is on a separate network, right? But, instead of anybody who's sitting on this VLAN can do anything they want at any time, and we don't know who they are or what they're doing there, like BACnet SC is a different model where I can say, hey, I'm going to issue a certificate to Ping, and I'm going to issue a certificate to Ryan. And this certificate is only going to work for this one BACnet SC network. So even if you take that certificate, you drive down the road to the next building, you're not going to get very far. So really what that does is it gives you a stamped proof that says, yeah, I really am talking to Ping, or yeah, I really am talking to Ryan. And what's cool is we can take that certificate and we can stamp it with facts. We can say, you know what, this is only good for the next 2 days because I know he's only going to be on campus for 2 days. And it'll automatically expire. But yeah, that's some of the things that helps us bring these zero trust concepts of who you are, your identity, to a building automation network.
Right. And it's probably important to note here for any students or any people new to the industry, this is one of the big asterisks beside BACnet, is that it is an unencrypted. It relies on the security umbrella of your IT department if you're working over IP. I think a lot of people see this as kind of a necessary response in 2026 to have such a large or, critical section of perhaps building operations be essentially naked to the outside world. So these are really critical security things that I know I haven't heard come up a lot in OT conversations to this point.
This comes up a lot. It's one thing we think that, hey, my office is secured. There's a lock on the door. No one's going to come, plug it under my desk or something like that. But the one that gets people is not necessarily the malice, but it can be misconfigurations and misunderstandings, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the most terrifying things that you can find in a cabinet are those duplex Ethernet jacks, right? So it's one wall plug, but it's got two Ethernet jacks, one above the other. They're unlabeled. I was like, I don't know which one I'm supposed to plug into. You know, you're 2 inches from disaster on that plug, right? Those are the kinds of things that I think about when I think about SC is like, how do I make buildings easier to operate? How do I reduce the risk of, someone making a catastrophic mistake on a Friday afternoon?
Let's talk about BBMDs. It's kind of an inevitable and a big chunk of talking about this. It's specifically about the routing part. So in a traditional BACnet IP network, we have, like you said, UDP broadcasts and BBMDs who do a ton of the heavy lifting of moving data around where it needs to go. So the hub and spoke model for BACnet SC, in theory, does away with BBMDs, right? And so how does this hub and spoke model change the way you would architect or your topology of your network?
I'll start in on it and you can help me if I get off track here. But so when I think about BACnet networks, we have a lot of students come through at the university. And so when I talk to my students, the things I talk to them about is it's like a group chat. So I can choose to reach out and text a particular device and send them a note, or I can choose to send a message to the whole group chat. And that's going to get all 20 devices that maybe have to do all my thermostats all in one network. Now, what gets us into trouble is if we have a built environment where our devices are across 2 different IP networks. They span 2 different IP subnets. So now we've got all our thermostats and they're in 2 different group chats. So if I want to, invite everybody to the party, if I want to invite everybody to lunch, something has to happen to make sure that message gets passed off. So what you do is you designate somebody on each group chat, on each network, and you say, you know what? You have a new special hobby. And your special hobby is anytime you hear a message that's sent to everybody, I need you to take a copy of that and send it to this other group chat over here, this other IP subnet over here. And in the best of times, these things work really great. If you're managing broadcast traffic, they don't have all that much to do. If devices are mostly talking directly to each other, they don't have that much to do. Now, where you can get in a lot of trouble with BBMDs is misconfigure them. One of the really popular things to do is accidentally set them up in a ring. So like a message gets passed around a couple times in a BBMD, or maybe you accidentally split the network so that messages can get distributed one way and not get distributed the other.
I think we've seen that, right, Ping? A few times. Yeah.
So the idea with BACnet SC, though, is it does simplify the deployment quite a bit because in a lot of ways, with the exception of that hub, everybody is equal peers. There's no, I'm on the main network and I'm on the secondary network. And because I'm on the secondary network, I'm less than, and I have to wait for a BBMD to relay the message, right? Like we're all equal peers talking to the hub, or in the special case for BACnet SC, we also have this thing called direct connect. That's, maybe push that off down the pipe a little bit. So yeah, BACnet SC does do away with the need for BBMDs. One other thing that's nice to compare and contrast with BACnet IP is that, at least in a typical setup, a BBMD is a single point of failure, right? If that BBMD is rebooting, you got it down for updates, something catastrophic happens to it, those networks are split and they can't talk to each other anymore. One of the things that we did when we designed BACnet SC is it actually supports a primary failover architecture. So you can have a primary hub that relays all that communication, but then you can configure all your devices and say, okay, here's your failover hub. So if something bad happens to that primary, here's where we're all going to agree to meet as a backup.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
But Nate, it can't do load balancing though, right?
Load balancing isn't in the protocol because we try to only standardize things that help with interoperability. Load balancing is something that we would generally consider to be like opaque to a client. Like, if I connect to a web server that's load balanced, I don't actually know which server at facebook.com I'm connected to. I just know that I punched in facebook.com and I got where I wanted to go, right? So no, we don't have load balancing exposed in the protocol, but there's nothing in there that precludes you from doing it.
Yeah. Let's move on. You were saying earlier, you were talking about the concept of trust, both of you. And in BACnet SC, we use certificates you were mentioning earlier. You were giving the example of giving me a certificate, giving Ryan a certificate. Where does a certificate sit? Who's responsible for maintaining the certificates? Does it sit on the devices, on the hub, on both? How does that all work?
That's a great question. So everyone who wants to participate in a BACnet SC network whether they're a hub or just a regular node, needs their own certificate, their own private key and their own certificate. And all of the certificates in a particular network are signed by the same certificate authority. So they need to be directly signed by the same certificate authority. Now, how these things get managed, how often they get updated, how often those certificates expire, that all kind of has to depend on your installation and how you want to operate those buildings.
And who would that fall to? Is this something that you would set up in configuration in your SE hub or in a controller, and it would just automatically? What happens at 2 a.m. if one expires and somebody needs to be in there?
So I think, and this is Nate's personal opinion now, but I think one of the really disastrous things that happened when SC first came out, and one of these sort of anti-patterns maybe you can look out for as an integrator, is this concept that we should have certificates that expire 5, 10, 20 years in the future. I think it's foolish to say that the building will never change. At no point in the next 5 years or no point in the next 10 or 20 or whatever, the building will never change, or that no device will ever have to be replaced, or no device will ever have to join this network. Something I think about a lot at work actually is if it hurts, you should do it more. Meaning, if you have a process at work that's not working for you, then maybe you just need more practice. And so I think that if you're looking at a really mature, really well-run BACnet SC network, those certificates don't last very long. They're getting, changed out and updated all the time. And this is something that's very automatable. You can put a new certificate in a device over BACnet, over the protocol itself, and instruct the device to go ahead and, switch over and start using that new certificate. So that renewal and replacement is baked right into the protocol. So that's something that, your vendor tool could be doing. It's something that you could have a standalone tool that's watching this network and watching for expiring certificates and, taking care of all that management for you. So hopefully these things aren't expiring at 2 a.m. because hopefully they're getting renewed all the time, just as part of, the normal business of things.
That's good. Oh, okay. So short answer is, if you have it set up properly, you probably don't have to worry about it at 2 a.m.
Right. Just look backups, just like updates. These are just part of the care and feeding.
Oh, I like that. The care and feeding. I like that. So most sites aren't going to rip out every controller on day one. If they were moving from, say, an IP, or they're going to want to. I know we said we're going to, but maybe it's more they would like to run their existing BACnet IP equipment alongside BACnet SC for probably however long they can. We see it with MSTP, and we're seeing it. And so it's logical to think of it being this way with IP and SC. So in practice, how would a BACnet IP and a BACnet SC, those two networks, talk to each other during an overlap, or if that overlap was seemingly permanent? Have you seen teams get tripped up trying to make that happen?
That's a really good question. So what's cool about BACnet is it's always sort of been built around the idea that you're going to have multiple networks and multiple different kinds of data link technologies all running at the same time. So I think most of your listeners are probably familiar with IP to MSTP routers. Yep. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just like an IP to MSTP router, you can have an IP to SC router, an IP to Secure Connect router.
Perfect.
And you theoretically could have an SC to MSTP router. You could have any sort of permutation, right, of data link technology to data link technology. So there's no reason that these things can't run concurrently. And I would expect even in a new building that you designed that there's plenty of use cases where you might see yourself with an SC to IP router.
Interesting.
There are plenty of different places in a building where one data link technology makes more sense than another.
Right. And is there anything particularly difficult to make them work together? Are they just because I mean, we all know BACnet's an open protocol standard. So would there be a lot more effort going into connecting these two than, say, just a hub or a switch connecting to IP networks?
Good question.
I know this isn't audible here. This wasn't on the list.
No, that's good. I think the first time you deploy new technology to a building, the first time an integrator integrates the new technology, there's always a little bit of a learning curve, right? You gotta learn something for the first time. And so I think that the first time you bring SC into your building, just like the first time you brought IP or the first time you brought MSTP, there's some things to figure out. How are those certificates going to get managed? How are those devices going to get updated? Where are they going to be connected? And I think those are questions that you'll have to answer. But I don't think those are uniquely SC problems. I think those are just anytime you bring a new technology into a building kind of question.
Do you see BACnet SC as realistic for, say, smaller or mid-sized buildings? Or is this really technology that's better suited to, say, 100,000 square foot office with no IT staff on hand? Or, is it a large portfolio campus conversation? Or is this something that could really work for smaller deployments?
It can definitely work for smaller deployments, particularly if you had, small sites that you wanted to connect back to a home office. Maybe you wanted to do energy readings across the portfolio. It would definitely work. It just depends on what your integrators are comfortable with, what your local vendors are comfortable with. But yeah, there's no technical reason. No.
Nate, on that note, there's a lot of sites right now that are connected to the web, right? And they use a combination of VPN and this and that. Would the use of BACnet SC eliminate the need for VPN? Does it work in conjunction? Like, is one a replacement for the other?
So one of the things that you can consider when you decide, would I rather connect this back over a VPN or would I rather connect this over SC, is I know that when I connect a building back over SC, the only information that's going to go over that pipe are going to be BACnet packets. When I connect it over a VPN, then I have to ask the question of what firewalls are in place, what kinds of traffic can pass through this VPN. Can an attacker who connects to this VPN get into my building and then jump laterally from a building automation controller to a payment system? We've actually seen that in the wild, but very famously.
Yes.
Versus, if I've got a hub in the cloud, the worst case, which is still a bad thing, but the worst case that can happen is that attacker is now sending BACnet packets into a network. They're not going to pivot from that into, taking files for the corporate file share or something like that.
They can run an FTP over it.
Right.
Nate, again, you're very involved with the standard, and I know the standard committee meets quite regularly. What is not covered by the standard in that our listeners should keep in mind when it comes to BACnet SC, right? What are some of the things that they need to be aware that their vendors, their integrators will be responsible for that's not defined by the standard? And then maybe another way to say is that if it's not covered by the standard, doesn't mean it's not interoperable.
Ooh. Okay, so BACnet SC tells you how to use the certificates. It tells you how the traffic will pass over WebSockets over TLS. It gives you a procedure to go through and update and replace those certificates as they expire, as you want to reissue them, whatever your policy dictates. And what it doesn't tell you is how long those certificates should last. It doesn't tell you who should hold the key to issue new certificates. It doesn't tell you what shape of network you should build. These are all things that are left up to your judgment or to your integrator's judgment, right? So I think there's pieces of it, but I don't think it's so different, again, than the same architectural choices you'd have to make deploying IP or MSTP.
So let's go a little bit more concrete here when we compare two things. So for example, you can buy a BACnet MSTP device from vendor A and a BACnet MSTP to BACnet IP router from vendor B. And assuming that they went through BTL testing and they're following the standard, they work together. They should be fairly seamlessly. However, if I listen to what you said there, for example, defining who owns the certificate authority, the CA, if integrator B came in and was a certificate authority, or they set up a security, a CA, and they walked away, you could not create a new certificate. Is that correct? That's not covered by the standard in the sense of who owns it, where it sits, and that must be left on site.
I would say that as a building owner, at the end of the day, when you hand off that job, you really ought to have access to that certificate authority, and you ought to have a way to issue new certificates to devices, whether that's in your tool or a vendor managed tool, doesn't really matter, but that's something that you should have the control over. Much like when you hand over a building, you might expect that you would get the passwords to these devices, if you want to go in and make changes later. Those are things that really should happen. And I see you laughing, right?
Yes,
but,
should
these are important considerations that
should happen.
When these things are handed off, you should get the access to own and maintain your own equipment.
Nate, to continue down that path, as you may mention, There's been amazing people working for 30 plus years on defining, developing, improving the BACnet standard. What should our listeners be aware of? Is there areas around BACnet SC that's still being developed, added, updated by you and the committee?
Yes. Like I said, continuous maintenance standards. So there are always new things happening to make the standard more reliable, more robust, whatever it is. There's a couple items that we've talked about. One of them is, should we come up with an interoperable way, a standard way that describes how to go and get new certificates over the network? So we've already, given you a way to go through and push certificates down to these devices. It's much like, on the web, you can automatically go and get new web certificates from folks like
Less encrypted.
Yeah, exactly. Like, should we have something like that for BACnet? I don't know. That's a topic of discussion. Another thing that we're looking at is the impact of quantum computing. And now regulators and governments are asking questions like, okay, there's all this cryptography that once we have a decently sized, decently error-corrected quantum computer, all this cryptography is going to fall apart. And so how can we identify these post-quantum algorithms and get them deployed? And they're particularly looking at OT systems, because we know that OT systems have a really long deployed service life. And so there are questions like, as soon as 2030, where can we deploy these post-quantum algorithms? They're called algorithms that are resistant to an attack from the quantum computer.
Quantum resistant. Yeah.
Yep. And then, there's the regulatory piece too. We have things like the Cyber Resilience Act in Europe. We have the new Cyber Trust Mark coming out in the United States. How do we make sure that tools like BACnet Secure Connect continue to meet the requirements set forward by those agreements, by those regulations?
Those who want to venture into BACnet SC, whether there's a new construction or an update to an existing one. In terms of cost, do you expect that to be significantly different? Is there added cost? Is there a cost to certificate? Is there a cost to rotating keys and things like that?
So what I can tell you is that BACnet SC uses certificates and a certificate authority that you own and manage. It's not like what people imagine with TLS certificates in the olden days, where you'd have to go to a big company like Verizon or VeriSign or something and buy one. This is something that you own and manage, and you shouldn't have to pay to issue certificates from something that you own and manage. What the price difference is for a particular vendor's equipment, I can't really speculate on that. But
you, as a manufacturer of your own equipment, is there an added cost, a significant added cost between a BACnet IP device and a BACnet SC device?
I think that for the sorts of, if you've got a device running Linux, which many controllers do, that device doesn't really care whether it's doing BACnet SC or BACnet IP. It's not a significant impact on the performance of that device.
Yeah. I think for our listeners, one way to think of it also is that if any of your device run a web server and you log into HTTPS/whatever, it likely means it has the capabilities already to be a BACnet SC device. So I think I'm asking that question because for those who are not familiar with the underlying technologies required to support BACnet SC, it's really not that any different than that web server that your controller is running that allows your browser to connect.
Way back at the beginning of the episode, one of the things that we talked about was BACnet's previous attempts at security. And one of the big barriers to adoption for those was that they had gone and implemented their own cryptography. They'd taken off-the-shelf algorithms, but they'd applied them in ways that were specific to BACnet. One of the lessons that they learned in BACnet SC was that that made adoption, it was a big barrier to adoption. So one of the things that's nice about BACnet SC is it just uses TLS, just like a web server off the shelf. It's TLS and WebSockets. So that made it really easy when we started rolling out BACnet SC for developers to get started and kind of get their head around what it actually took to put this in their products. And that was a very deliberate choice by BACnet. And I think that we've really seen that strategy pay off in terms of market adoption.
What is sort of the market reality right now for BACnet SC? And what I mean for that is, are we seeing a lot of vendor support? Are we seeing, like, what is sort of the state of people actually? I know you're manufacturing your own solutions, which is amazing, and probably a whole episode right there, because that's just nerd heaven for someone like me.
Yeah.
But are we seeing an uptake from vendors, not only, let's say, on the supply side in terms of creating the manufacturing side, but also systems integrators? Are you hearing a lot about systems integrators doing BACnet SC installs right now?
Yeah, we are. And if you're not familiar with the Plugfest, the idea is that vendors from all different companies bring all of their gear, their latest and greatest, but also, their, older, more mature workhorse equipment, right? And they sit around these round tables and they plug in their stuff together and make sure that it all talks and it all works together. And I know there's been a number of like SC focused, like specifically SC focused events where they've had really, really good engagement from vendors all across the industry that are wanting to come together and make sure this stuff works really well with stuff from other companies. Another really good indicator is Ping mentioned BTL earlier. So BTL is an independent test lab. They'll go through and subject your device, use the vendor, to a whole bank, thousands of pages of conformance tests, so that when you go and purchase a device that has this BTL mark, that you can be reasonably sure it's going to work well on a BACnet network. So if you go on BTL's website, one of the lesser known things is that you can view and filter listings. And so you can actually go to the BTL website right now and say, hey, show me all the things that know how to be a BACnet SC hub. And then you get a menu to choose from of things that are ready to go. The other direction you can go is you can say, like, hey, I really like working with, Bob's Great Building Controls. And so you can go to the BTL website, pick Bob's Great Building Controls, and now you can scroll down and say, hey, show me all their products that support BACnet SC today. So that's a really good way to kind of get a handle on.
That's super helpful, and I'll put the links in the show notes for this. Obviously, that's an excellent resource. And the next question: the relationship between building automation teams and the corporate IT teams, and obviously the conversation with IT OT convergence being sort of on the rise now. IT didn't love BACnet IP for reasons we've already spoken of. Do we see BACnet SC sort of changing that conversation at all? When traffic is encrypted and it looks more like the kind of secure traffic that IT is already comfortable with, do you feel like that helps build those relationships with your IT partners, those doors that probably weren't open before for the ones that are responsible for the OT network side?
Definitely. Anytime you're not the odd person out asking for strange firewall exceptions, I think is a great boon to adoption right there. But no, the fact that it's just, HTTPS, like, that's something that everybody knows, everybody's comfortable with. It runs over the standard port, in most cases. Depends how you deploy it, I guess. I think that very much lowers the barrier to adoption, and I think it results in a lot less questions being asked. And I think that just the architecture of BACnet SC being hub and spoke and not requiring a bunch of special firewall holes to make it work, I think that's just an easier pill to swallow across the board. Definitely, yeah.
Excellent. My final question: if you were advising facility director today, what would you tell them about the timing on BACnet SC? Would you say migrate now, pilot it in one building, wait a little bit, or stick with BACnet IP and we'll get back to you? And in addition to that, the part two, are there any don't do this warnings that you would suggest for them if they were considering this, any sort of solution involving BACnet SC? Are there any not negatives, but red flags, potential red flags?
Yeah. So to your first question, we migrate now or later. The thing I would say is, I don't know about other facility owners, but I'm pretty busy and I don't have a huge appetite to go into a building where things are mostly working and start changing a bunch of stuff. That's probably not going to happen. In terms of like my business objectives, I have never had a student on a recruiting tour walk into a building and go, gosh, the air is so fresh, I can smell the BACnet SC. Like, that's never a conversation that we've had. It'd be a great marketing line if they had, but it's never a conversation that we've had.
I love the smell of BACnet in the morning.
That's right. That's right. And so I mean, it comes back to your business objectives, right? Like I probably will not go into a building that's happy and working well and rebuild it just for fun, just because it seems cool. Now, if that building has compliance issues, if that building has an old sketchy VPN that's out of support, if that building has, if I'm going to go in there and make changes, would I choose BACnet SC? Maybe. Does it make my life easier? Can I delete a bunch of firewall rules that I had in place? Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be a great fit. But am I going to go to a building that's working great and well supported and doesn't have any security issues and start messing with it? Probably not.
That's a perfect answer. That's the don't do this. Yeah.
So I will say one, don't do this. NSC is great. It runs over TLS. Oh, that said, on a typical controller, on a typical computer, on a typical device, BACnet is not the only thing running on there. There's lots of other things. Windows might be on there. There might be other pieces of software, other web servers. If you have a really good culture of keeping all of your building automation devices on a separate network, keep doing that. Don't stop doing that. If you have a culture of not putting your thermostat on the internet and giving an IP address, keep doing that. Keep it behind the firewall, keep it on its own network. That's still a good practice for a whole bunch of different reasons. And this is not a reason to walk away from that. BACnet SC enables a bunch of cool new architectures that you can deploy your stuff with, but it doesn't mean that we need to give up on all the really great practices that we've worked so hard to get to.
Nate, if I may, I took a couple of notes while we're talking and to summarize. I want to make sure I'll run through them and then nod if you agree, stop me if you disagree. I think it's important that after all this, people realize it still uses a good old BACnet messages that everyone knows now, the who is and the I am, the change of values, the read properties, all those things, trend logs, those don't go away. It's just another transport layer as you described it before. So it doesn't change what you can or cannot do at the application layer. It is interoperable. Which means that whether one vendor came your way and talked about moving you to BACnet SC on a new building, it does not mean you're locked in. It is still interoperable. That's kind of the whole point of the BACnet Standard Committee, to create openness. There's no change to the IT or OT network infrastructure. You don't need new switches or routers. It still uses good old IT infrastructure. If you have switches that already pass traffic, you can browse the internet on it. It will continue to work. So you don't have to upgrade any IT equipment to make BACnet SC work. And last but not least, BACnet SC uses some of the best practices and protocols that have been used by IT for many, many years. You didn't create new TLS encryption. You didn't create a new way of exchanging keys. You didn't create a new way of creating sockets. It uses some of the things are available in the IT industry for a couple of decades now. Newer versions of it, but yeah.
For those who are listening to the podcast, Nate did enthusiastically nod his head yes to all of those things. Nate, I want to thank you so much for joining us and helping to answer really a whole variety of questions around BACnet SC. I know we get questions from people who have only heard of it and don't really understand what it is, think it might be a rip and replace situation for everything. I personally didn't know that they could coexist happily in the same building. So that's great. So I learned something. Hopefully the people that listened learned something as well. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you online?
It's a great question. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to connect.
Perfect. Direct all your questions on BACnet SC to Nate. No, I'm kidding. No. But yes, thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of what is a BACnet meeting in Florida that you're at right now.
Yes, I am.
Perfect.
Well, tomorrow is Cybersecurity Day, so I'm looking forward to detailed BACnet SC discussions tomorrow.
Very detailed. Nate, thank you as always.
Yes, thank you so much. How to Handshake was created by Optigo Networks. You can find us on YouTube and at optigo.net. Tune in 2 weeks for the next episode.